Well, welcome to the quiz. In this little quiz, you're going to be given two extracts from the curriculum from a nation, and you have to guess which one is Scotland's curriculum for excellence. So the first one, we're looking at mathematics. Perform geometric proofs involving two-dimensional rectilinear figures with appropriate symbols, terminology, and reasons. Or, I have worked with others to research a famous mathematician and the work they are known for, or investigated a mathematical topic and have prepared and delivered a short presentation. Which one do you think is from the curriculum for excellence? The answer is the second one. The first one is a very clear statement of mathematical knowledge and ability required, whereas the second one is sort of a bit woolly, go and do some research on the internet and do a little presentation. Second one for the curriculum for excellence, the first one from Hong Kong. Right, what have we got next? We're going to history next. The rise of Islamic civilization and cultural interactions between Europe and Asia in medieval times. Learning points, the origins, teachings and development of Islam. Suggested guiding questions. How was Greco-Roman civilization widely spread through wars, trade and commerce, etc., etc. There's a lot more detail there. Right, the second option. I can discuss why people and events from a particular time in the past were important, placing them within a historical sequence. Can you guess which one's from the curriculum for excellence? It's the second one. The one that's just a bit woolly and vague, subjective. You can talk about why they were important. Whereas the first one's from Singapore, where you have to know your stuff about that period and be able to interpret it as well. Right, next question. On to physics now. Wave motion. Amplitude, wavelength and frequency. Relating velocity to frequency and wavelength. Transverse and longitudinal waves, etc., etc. That looks like some pretty straightforward, straight down the line, serious science education to me. Let's look at the second option. I can monitor the environment by collecting and analysing samples. I can interpret the results to inform others about levels of pollution and express a considered opinion on how science can help to protect our environment. First one sounds like serious science. The second one a bit vague and woolly, probably a bit politicised as well, talking about why things are important and explaining to people rather than any sort of hard science. Which one's from Scotland's curriculum for excellence? The second one, of course. The first one's actually from the national curriculum for England and Wales. Now, that little quiz is not designed to be scientific in any way. You might say, oh, it's not comparing like with like or whatever. But the point I'm trying to make is it's illustrating the problem with the curriculum for excellence is this tendency to vague, woolly, subjective things rather than proper, straightforward academic teaching. There's only a finite amount of time in the school day. If you spend it on these other things, you're not spending it on proper academic work. So let's have a look in a bit more detail at the curriculum for excellence. I'm going to give you some sort of edited highlights of it, just to give you the flavour of some of the stuff that is in it. Health and well-being, absolutely, like page 1 of the national curriculum, huge section is devoted to this. It's got all the Shinari things. I've got another video, I'll put a link at the end about Shinarification. But the well-being emphasis, subjective, therapeutic, are you sure you're okay? Not character education. If you look at other countries, you'll see a big emphasis on character education. Not in Scotland. It's about well-being. Scottish children need more nurturing and looking after rather than challenging and having their characters built, apparently. So let's look at this. I can expect my learning environment to support me too, develop my self-awareness, self-worth and respect for others. In other words, you've got a right for your school to boost your self-esteem. I mean, what does that even mean? Anyway, understand that adults in my school community have a responsibility to look after me, listen to my concerns, and involve others where necessary. Okay, you adults, you've got a responsibility to look after me. There's nothing about we want to teach children they've got a responsibility to adults, to people in authority, to their teachers, to be obedient and cooperative or whatever. Nothing about that. Learning environment to support me to acknowledge diversity and understand that it's everyone's responsibility to challenge discrimination. Now that might sound okay at face value, but you can imagine the sort of indoctrination that is involved when that's actually put into practice. Right, mental, emotional, social and physical well-being. I'm aware of and able to express my feelings, and I'm developing the ability to talk about them. So that's something that children are taught in Scottish schools, how to express and talk about their feelings. I mean, could you imagine that? I mean, for me, that would just be the torture to have to sit through that sort of class. But Scottish children are subjected to hour after hour of this sort of therapeutic, semi-counselling, navel-gazing, feeling-centred education. Okay, I know that we all experience a variety of thoughts and emotions that affect how we feel and behave, and I'm learning ways of managing them. Again, fair enough, but that shouldn't be something that's made explicit in a curriculum. That's something you learn naturally through interactions with peers and also with the teachers as well. I understand that my feelings and reactions can change depending upon what is happening within and without me. This helps me to understand my own behaviour and the ways others behave. Again, what's that doing in a curriculum? Okay, you can't teach that by any sort of deliberate process. I am learning skills and strategies which will support me in challenging times, particularly in relation to change and loss. Now, one of the things they do in schools in Scotland is talk about bereavement. So you've got your little class in primary school, you say, has anyone ever had anyone they loved died? Oh yes, I did, sir. And then some of them might start crying when you talk about how difficult it is and whatever. And a lot of the time it's unnecessary. And also I would say it is trying to supplant the role of the family as well. I think these things should be left to families. Right, I understand that people can feel alone and can be misunderstood and left out by others. I am learning how to give appropriate support. Not learning how to be a good friend, how to give appropriate support. So trying to turn the kids into some mini social workers. There's all this sort of jargon, this therapeutic culture that's imposed on them. Right, this is from the nursery level, 3 to 5 year olds. In everyday activity and play, I explore and make choices to develop my learning and interests. I am encouraged to use and share my experiences. I guess what that means is the kids choose whether they're going to play in the sandpit or at the water table, but they have to put it in this sort of high-sounding edubabble. Now this is up into senior school, up to high school now. I regularly select and listen to or watch text for enjoyment and interest. Right, that maybe sounds quite substantial. Text, you might be thinking, novels or books. Texts can mean anything. It can mean YouTube videos. It can mean like listening to a podcast. So you can select things like including YouTube videos. I can express how well they meet my needs and expectations, and I can give reasons with evidence for my personal response. Again, how far away is that from actual sort of academic education? A pretty long way. So then high school here. I have experienced the energy and excitement of being part of an audience for other people's presentations and performances. I mean, that is just rubbish, isn't it? I mean, how can that possibly be in a curriculum? So, did you experience energy and excitement when we took you to sit through the play of the year group above? Yeah, I think so. Okay, great. Box ticked. We've achieved that outcome. Right, well done, class. I mean, still in high school, I can apply my performance skills to dance with accuracy, control, body awareness, sensitivity and movement flow. I can communicate my artistic intention and take account of different audience groups. Now that sounds something from like the dance academy or something, or a sort of university course. But just remember, when you hear about Scotland slipping down the league tables in academic subjects, part of the reason is that they're trying to achieve targets like this at school. Okay, so in high school here, having had opportunities to lead negotiation and decision making, I can work on my own and with others to devise, rehearse and refine dramas and scripts. Okay, so they don't have to reach any sort of standard, just the fact that you've talked to people about it. It's all subjective, waffly negotiation, and that's an objective for the curriculum. I enjoy singing and playing along to music of different styles and cultures. Right, we're in the nursery again. Now 3 and 5 year olds, they have to enjoy singing. What if they just don't enjoy singing? have they not achieved that? It's got to be different styles and cultures, of course, because if a 3-year-old doesn't enjoy the music of different cultures, well, they're obviously failing to meet the standards required of them by the government. Back to high school. I can give assured, expressive and imaginative performances of vocal and or instrumental music from a wide range of styles and cultures using performance directions, musical notation and or playing by ear. Now see this again, so in other words, you're going to get good at music, singing or playing an instrument, but it has to be a wide range of styles and cultures. So if you play the piano and you can play all of Beethoven's piano sonatas and a whole lot more classical music to a very high standard, sorry, failed. Where's your music from different cultures? Back to the nursery. This is a great one. I am learning to move my body well, exploring how to manage and control it and finding out how to use and share space. I am learning to move my body well. Someone wrote that, decided it was worth putting in the national curriculum, and all sorts of review bodies have looked at that and thought, yeah, that's good, that's a sensible objective for the nursery level. Right, moving on. Right, back up to high school again. As I encounter a variety of challenges and contexts for learning, I am encouraged and supported to demonstrate my ability to select and apply a wide range of complex movement skills and strategies creatively, accurately, and with consistency and control. This is carrying on the movement theme through the curriculum to the top of high school. I mean, have you ever heard such a load of nonsense as that? That's just, again, it's total rubbish. It can't possibly form the basis of any sort of sensible curriculum. But that's what gets through, and that's what the Scottish educational establishment thinks is a good target to have in the curriculum. Lower primary school here. I experience a sense of enjoyment and achievement when preparing simple, healthy foods and drinks. Okay, so they're going to be able to do a bit of sort of cooking, food preparation, but you've got to experience a sense of enjoyment and achievement. So if you just don't like cooking, well, you failed. I mean, you haven't met the government's target. Your target is to enjoy it. I'd fail that. Secondary school again. Having researched food and health policy and dietary legislation, I can explain how this impacts on individuals, the community, and the world of work. Having researched dietary legislation. This is in school. You don't need to learn about dietary legislation in school. Let's have just a little bit more maths, a bit more English, a bit more science, and then maybe we could get up the league tables a bit more. I am beginning to understand that nutritional needs change at different stages of life. For example, the role of breastfeeding in infant nutrition. What age do you think need to know about that? Lower primary school, 5 to 8-year-olds need to know about changing nutritional needs at different stages of life. Whoever thinks that's something that they need to be learning about at that stage. Right, back up to secondary school. I have examined and evaluated food packaging and can understand the legal requirements for manufacturers. Again, what is that doing in the school curriculum? Basic academic subjects provide this is supposed to be called the broad general education, where that's a very specific, niche piece of knowledge. There's not really a wide application to the young people, and it's not part of an academic subject. Right, up to secondary school again. I'm developing a range of skills which can support decision making about substance abuse. I can demonstrate strategies for making informed choices and maintain and improve my health and well-being, and can apply these in situations that may be stressful or challenging or involve peer pressure. I know how to access information and support for substance-related issues. Notice what's missing. Okay, the objective that the government wants isn't that young people reject illegal drug abuse. The objective is that they can support decision making about it. So the message to young people is we want to help you to make your decisions. It's not up to us to tell you what those decisions should be. We just want to help you to make them. And that's as far as they seem capable of going. Right, secondary school again. I know the action I should take in the management of incidents and emergencies related to substance misuse. Are we really in the situation? Is it really that bad that part of every child's education in Scotland needs to be how to deal with people who've abused drugs and to provide sort of first aid to them? Maybe it is, but that's a pretty sorry reflection on a nation when it thinks that needs to be in the curriculum. By researching the impact of substance misuse nationally and internationally, I can explain similarities and differences among communities. Again, secondary school. That's quite specialist knowledge in this area. Why is it necessary? We don't want kids to be specialists in drug abuse. This focus should be on mainstream academic subjects, with alongside it character development. But what's this? High school again. I'm developing skills for making decisions about my relationships and sexual behaviour. I'm able to apply these to situations that may be challenging or difficult. No indication about what the right decisions are, what the wrong decisions are. So as though any decisions are fine, just as long as we've helped you in making those decisions. That's all we can hope for from the school. Back to nursery and beginning of primary school. I'm aware of my growing body and I am learning the correct names for its different parts and how they work. Now we've seen this in the RSHP resources where they're learning the sort of correct names for genitalia, etc., which most adults, most parents, most cultures, also through the centuries, have thought that's something that's not necessary, that's not a good idea. But right in the curriculum for excellence, it says all that wisdom should be overruled and children need to learn about what a scrotum is in nursery. I know how to manage situations concerning my sexual health and well-being. I'm learning to understand what is appropriate sexual behaviour. This is for high school. What a joke. If you look at the government's official sex education materials, they present a message that gives the pupils completely the wrong idea about what is appropriate sexual behaviour. Yet the curriculum said this. So if you read the curriculum, you'd think, oh, that sounds very responsible. Oh yes, this government really sounds like it's got some good things in store for our children here. If you look at it in practice, dear oh dear. I am able to show an awareness of the tasks required to look after a baby. This is for children aged 3 to 8. Children aged 3 to 8 have been taught how to look after babies. Why? Again, more maths from high school. Having investigated the relationship between the radius, diameter, circumference and area of a circle, I can apply my knowledge to solve related problems. Again, you don't need to investigate these things. You can just be told them. You can just be shown them. But with the curriculum for excellence, it's specifying that the teacher has to do it a certain way by having them going through some sort of activity that involves that investigation, that the teacher might well think, well, actually, that's a waste of time. It'd be better if I just showed them, then we got on to doing some questions. So it's taking away discretion from teachers. Right, religious and moral education, high school again. Having reflected upon Christian responses to issues of morality, I can discuss ways in which to create a more just, equal, compassionate and tolerant society. In other words, having reflected on Christianity, I'm going to try and see how that translates into the SNP's manifesto. Those words, just, equal, compassionate, tolerant. Okay, no one's going to argue with them as concepts, but the general understanding of those words in the political realm is politicised, and they're generally regarded as things which would lean towards the SNP's agenda. They'd be words that they very much would be pushing. We might have other words that we think are important morally and politically. So I think there's a sign of politicisation there. Surprise, surprise. Right, into science then here. Through investigation, I can explain the formation and use of fossil fuels and contribute to discussions on the responsible use and conservation of finite resources. You see that? Contribute to discussions. What level do you have to reach to contribute to a discussion? Not these are the things you have to know and we're going to test you on it, you need to learn them. Contribute to a discussion. Notice here as well, this is a bit out of date. It's as though the problem with fossil fuels is that we're going to run out of them. Whereas I think the emphasis now is a little different. By using my knowledge of our solar system and the basic needs of living things, I can produce a reasoned argument on the likelihood of life existing elsewhere in the universe. Now that's an interesting question, life elsewhere in the universe. To be honest, I'm not sure you can really get very far in the debate without a substantial amount of scientific knowledge. But that's another example of something a bit vague and woolly that people writing the curriculum might think, oh, they'll find that really interesting. Maybe they will, but it's not really science teaching. That's the sort of thing you can do after a substantial body of science has been taught. But this sort of woolly, nice sort of activity pushes out the serious teaching in many cases. I can compare and contrast the society in the past with my own and contribute to a discussion of the similarities and differences. Totally vague. And the fact that it's vague means that it doesn't give an indication of what level this activity is going to happen at, what standard needs to be reached. Secondary school. I can analyse the factors contributing to the development of a multicultural society and can express an informed view on issues associated with this. I'd be very surprised if many lessons cover the full spectrum of views about multiculturalism. To clarify, multiculturalism is the idea that you have a society of parallel streams existing that don't really interact with each other, in a sense live in their own parallel worlds. A lot of people think that that sort of society isn't the ideal. How many lessons cover that sort of point of view? I would imagine not many. Were they intended to by the people who wrote the curriculum? Probably not. Secondary school again. I can explain why a group I have identified might experience inequality and can suggest ways in which this inequality might be addressed. I mean, that's just clear-cut, straightforward, left-wing indoctrination. Okay, the idea that inequality is the problem, there's a social justice mindset. And you can just imagine the sort of lessons that would go on with that. You could get the sort of dogmatic feminist lines, you get LGBT things, you get all sorts of issues would come up, and I think that that's an unhelpful way to address them, just finding statistical differences and then saying that's an injustice, saying how do we sort it out. But in Scotland, social justice teaching is the national curriculum. Well, that was a quick tour around some of the lowlights of the Curriculum for Excellence. I chose those to illustrate some of the problems that are really present throughout the curriculum. So what's our solution? Our solution is to scrap the Curriculum for Excellence. It's beyond repair, and replace it with a simple, straightforward academic curriculum of the type that's found in virtually every other country in the world. Okay, thanks for watching. I hope that was interesting. We are a political party. If you want to support us in our quest to get MSPs into the Scottish Parliament, to talk this sort of sense where it's most needed, then you can join the Scottish Family Party via the link below. Thanks.